We previously covered some styling with Flexbox and talked a lot about application state in our last video. In this video, we're going to cover doing some animations using the LayoutAnimation API of React Native. We'll cover what the LayoutAnimation API does and what it's good for, and we'll learn how to add keys to components and lifecycle methods to our classes to support that animation. Finally, we're going to finish by creating our own custom and slightly tweaked animation for switching between quotes. We've put together a great little app here. We can cycle through our quotes easily, but one of the hallmarks of great mobile UX is judicious use of animation. The whole purpose of our Relaxation Station app, besides teaching some great React Native principles, of course, is to help someone feel a little more zen, and some simple animations between quotes may help out with that. There are two means of animating in React Native, the LayoutAnimation API and the Animated API. We're going to cover the LayoutAnimation API right now as it suits our needs best. LayoutAnimation is best suited for animating components either appearing or disappearing on the screen, or if they're changing size or opacity. This works perfectly for our case because our quotes are appearing and disappearing on screen, and we want a peaceful animation between them. The documentation for the LayoutAnimation API is available on the React Native website, and it's pretty straightforward. Here's a short preview of what it can do. It works by figuring out what is changed in a scene. That might be new or old objects or changed properties of those objects. To track the objects, we put a key attribute on elements we know will change so that React Native can track them and animate them. We want to animate our quotes, so let's open up our quote screen component and add a key to the element that we know will change, which is our quote component right here. Now the key needs to be unique, and we can satisfy this by using the index of the quote that we're currently showing and using that as our unique key. Currently that's only contained in our index, so we're going to want to pass that down too. We'll add a new prop type to our quote screen, and we'll call it QID for quote ID. And that's going to be a number. And now that we have that, we can add that as a key to our quote. Now we'll add to index the quote ID as we pass it down. Okay, great. Now let's refresh. And we have one more thing to do to tell our app to start using LayoutAnimation. Back in quote screen, we simply have to call LayoutAnimation before we know that our scene will update. So in React, there is the component will update lifecycle method. And the component will update lifecycle method allows us to hook in a LayoutAnimation command before an update actually occurs. And we will use the Spring animation of the API like this. And include LayoutAnimation from the React Native library. And save. And just before we show the result, I wanted to make one special mention if you're working on an Android app. Depending on the version of React Native you are running, you may need to turn on an experimental flag as detailed here in the docs. Just check the docs for the version of React Native you're running to find out. Now as we cycle through our quotes, we get a great little crossfade. That's looking pretty smooth. If we want, we can do even better than just a simple crossfade. Let's let a bit of time elapse between quotes so that we're not just crossfading, but we're giving the mind time to relax and prepare to process a new one. If you were to look at the source of the Spring command, you'd find that it simply returns an object that describes an animation, just as all the other presets do as well. So instead of calling one of the pre-made animations, we can dictate our own settings for an animation. We'll call ours the Tranquil animation, and we're going to add it to a variable just after this background image, and it'll look like this. We define a duration of 500. For any create animations, the duration will be about 1 second with a 300 millisecond delay. It's going to ease in that animation, and we're going to be animating the opacity of whatever object we're animating. For an update animation, if something were to change, we'd ease it in and out, changing the opacity. And for a deletion, or for an item disappearing from screen, the duration for that will be 200 milliseconds. We're going to ease it out, and again, we're going to affect the opacity. This object structure represents most of the basic properties that you utilize when defining any type of layout animation. To use our new Tranquil settings as opposed to the Spring preset, we're going to change the spring call to configure next, and we will pass it our settings. Now when we save this, and we reload, as we cycle through, we see that our quote disappears quickly and then fades in slowly, which is a nice transition. And with that, we've completed our first React Native application. Congratulations! I'd now encourage you to go forth and experiment. We've built a great base here. Make it your own. Change the quotes, change the styling, play with different animations, add a feature here or there. I'm sure you can come up with some great things to do on this. And I hope you're feeling confident in the basics of React Native, because we've covered a whole lot of ground in this section. We initialized and set up our new relaxation station app, and we created a lot of different UI components, and we styled them and saw how hot reloading makes development very easy. We also passed data to many of our props and talked all about prop types, and we used the navigator component to implement a basic navigation. We've stored stateful data at the very top of our app using global state, and we just finished adding animations to our app that improve the experience. In our next application, we're going to create a really neat status monitoring app that's going to take everything that we've learned here and build upon it.